Hello class, I want to talk with you about the Prentice Hall reference guide that you're using and the section over MLA documentation. It's been a while since we've been in class, so I kind of want to do a little refresher over the pages that you really need to look at when writing your essays. So you really want to pay attention to tab 11, all right? That's where everything begins for MLA. When you flip the tab over, you have this really lengthy directory, okay? And that's really what you want to consult when you're trying to figure out how you need to set up the entries, not only for the in-text citations, but for the citations at the end of your paper, the works cited entries, okay? Now, if you flip that page over, I'm looking at page 414. Okay, you're going to see where it talks about in-text citations over here. And I really like this chart that it gives you on pages 416 through 418. Right. So again, these pages are very, very, very helpful to you. They tell you how to set up like the in-text examples, and they tell you like what the different scenario would be for each kind of source. You know, if you have 3 or more authors, if you're using a film, if you're using like number 14, time-based media source. So that's a video, okay? Let's see. Of course, we have number 17, indirect source. Okay, I do want to make a point about the indirect source. If we look at number 17 on page 418, we're talking about that one right there. Okay, so an indirect source means that you have acquired information from within, let's say, a book or an article, but the information you're using did not come from the person who wrote the book or article. Like maybe that article contains a quotation by someone, or it contains research by someone. Okay, so if you quote a person from within that work, then you're going to use QTDN and then the last name of the person who wrote the actual source, okay, in which you found this information. And then probably, you know, the page number, like the example it gives here, if it's a print source or if it's paginated. If you're not quoting anything, you're going to leave out the QTD and just put in. Right. So other parts of this section that are going to be really helpful to you, on page 420, it begins an explanation of the works cited. That whole section, like how that's supposed to look. It gives you an example of how to set up works cited on page 421, right? I do expect you to look at this information when you're trying to put together not only the information that you're using in your text, but also at the end of your paper, right? I also really like this quick guide that begins on page 427. It tells you really specific details that you might not be able to find in other parts of the book, like what do you do for certain situations for an author? What do you do? How do you set up or format the title of a source? Page 428. How do you deal with numbers, like in volumes? What do you do about the name of the publisher? Publication date. Okay, so information like that. There's also information on page 430 about what do you do with either the DOI, the digital object identifier, which is a number that you might include if you use a particular kind of source, or a URL. Okay, so those are all things that you need to be aware of. Then we have, beginning on page 431, we have the basic information for how to set up a works cited entry, like a book with one author, and it goes through all the possible, permutations that you might encounter for different kinds of sources. Finally, on page 449, you have this chart that talks about the paper format, how your paper should look visually. And you finally have a sample paper that starts on page 451, which might be really helpful to you.